that was my my experience with hurting somebody's car for the first time.
But you really don't know the ingredient that Knott gave you mixed with gasoline, huh?
Yes.
So it mixed nicely, so it
Yes.
wasn't nitro.
I suspect it was propylene oxide of some form and other stuff that he had.
But something that would mix with
Yes,
gasoline.
it definitely mixed with gasoline. There was no question about that. And later on, when I put it in my Oldsmobile, when I got further along, I had a 49 Olds and I put the stuff in it. And it would pick up, in the quarter mile, 10 miles an hour and about a half a second.
Wow.
That's how powerful it was. But you had to shut it off. And when, the one time that I did run it in the Oldsmobile, I raced the Base Commander, and I was so nervous. It was like a parrot passing a peach seed. It was terrible. And so I get back to the base, and then I realize when I park at the barracks that I hadn't shut the fuel off. But not driving it at full throttle, it didn't heat the motor up, but it did heat it up to the point to where I had to put my hand over the carburetor to shut it off because it wouldn't stop running. It was dieseling at that point. Turning the ignition off didn't make any difference.
And now you've beat the Base Commander?
I beat the Base Commander.
Oh, this is not good.
Well, the short version of that story is he had he bought a brand new 56 Buick with that super Dynaflow that they had in those days, and he was bragging about how hot it was. But he really wasn't the Base Commander. He was the Wing Commander, and he flew B-47s, and he was apparently a very good pilot. His name was Brick Holstrom. His nickname was Brick. His last name was Holstrom, and he was a hot dog. He had been co-pilot with Jimmy Doolittle, as I understand it. I don't have proof of that, but that's what I understood at the time. And so I'm telling him, I'd like to try him on sometime. And he says, yeah, kid, right. So we left it at that. And so I figured he might be ready for this kind of an effort if I can just goad him into it. So I went and Johnny Scully and myself, we went to the Buick dealership and we got a car on the pretext that we were going to road test it to buy it. He did. He went in and got the car. He handled that kind of situation better than I did. So he went in and borrowed the Buick, and we met down on Minden Road in Shreveport. And I raced the new Buick with the Oldsmobile, and I had him covered about a car and a half. So I figured, we'll get him, right?
This is like the pre-race test for the Base Commander.
Right. I wanted to see if I could actually beat the Buick. And so I went ahead and sawed him off, and so we took the car back and said, no, we're not interested, what have you. And then I saw him a couple of more times. I worked the night shift. I was a radar mechanic, and I had to meet all the airplanes when they came back from a mission and fix whatever was wrong with them and have it ready for the shop to do the repairs on the componentry that I would remove once I diagnosed what the problem was. And it was usually the vacuum had fallen off of the radio unit, and the radio would just arc inside. So they'd have to clean up the arc and go back and pull another vacuum on the unit. That was fairly simple stuff, but it gave me access to all the pilots and stuff. And we were in a group of about 3 guys, and I was challenging him on this race. He says, all right, kid, come with me. And so we go. The base is like 200 acres, 300 acres, great big place. Matter of fact, that's where George W. Bush went when they had the 9/11 thing. They landed this U.S. Air Force One there at Barksdale. It was a 1.5 mile, 2-mile runway, big place. And we went back in the woods, back where the firing ranges and stuff like that were. And we decided, I said, you want to go from a roll or you want to go from a dead stop? He says, dead stop. I says, anytime you're ready. And we stomped on the throttle, and I pulled out about a half a car. And as that hydromatic shifted, it would move a little bit further ahead of him. And I stayed ahead of him up to about 100 miles an hour. And then I lifted, and when I lifted, he went by me. I mean, he was serious. And I, on my way back to the barracks, I'm getting a little paranoid. I'm going, my
So
God.
have you won or lost?
I won. I beat him in the drag race, and he came by me. But I didn't tell him I lifted. I never got the opportunity. But he went by me in a hurry, and I figured he assumed that he won. And so I'm on my way back to the barracks. I'm shivering because I had just raced the goddamn wing commander in his new car on federal property. I'm in deep shit, right? So I'm just shaking. I get back to the barracks and I pull in the quadrangle and I turn it off and it won't shut off, and I realize I hadn't turned the fuel. So I open the hood and I pull the air cleaner off and I put my hand over the carburetor, got the motor stopped, and I figured I heard it. Turns out I didn't. So then about 2 weeks later, I'm at the same coffee shop on the flight line where I met him for the first time. And they're all coming across the flight line from a mission. And so I figured, uh-oh, I can't get out of here, because if I go anywhere, I got to go out that door, and they're going to come in, right? So I figured I had better opportunity outside. So I went outside, and he's in front, two guys alongside of him walking with him with their gear over their shoulder, and a flock of people behind him. And I figured, here's when I'm going to get it, right? So he goes by, and he looks at me, and he's got this kind of stern look, and he winks at me. I thought I was going to faint. I figured,
You just got
oh
off the
boy,
hook.
everything got approved at that point. Oh boy, that was really something. So that was my my introduction to drag racing in the realm of modifying the car with nitro and whatever else Jake put in that. I have no idea what the fuel mixture was. Cupid don't know either. And I guess Jake had given him some and wouldn't tell him either. And so I was the local drag racer. I had dual exhaust, man, so I was cool in the service. Everybody else had kind of the plebeian family car.
Have you been to a drag strip yet?
No, not
Proper
yet.
one?
Not yet, no. And so the guy in the sergeant in the barracks at the 301st A&E Squadron where I worked bought a brand new 56 Chevy in September of 55. And it was, the hot one was even hotter. It was a 56 Chevy. It had a power pack engine and a power glide. And it was pretty quick for its day. So I talked him into going to the drag races. And the nearest drag strip was Karnak, Texas. And it was a paved quarter-mile and then grass. It was a landing strip. And we got over there, and there was lots of other cars there, maybe 50 for this drag race, and you paid 50 cents, and you went in and you took the hubcaps off and stuff like that. And I figured I was hot shit, I'm gonna drive, going out there. And the first car I run up against was a 55 Chevy. And he smoked that 56 something terrible. And the guy that teched the car, when I looked at it to see if it was stock or modified, put us in the stock class. He says, "This is a power glide?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "So it's better be pretty fast." I didn't know what he meant, but it was fast. So why is he telling me this? Well, I found out that 55 Chevrolet put 3 open on me, man, and that was my first trip down the drag strip. So we went back several other times, and I got better at driving it, better at leaving, and we won a couple. Didn't win any trophies or anything, but we won a couple of races and had a good time, and that's what we went over to do. It wasn't like we were big-time racers or anything. All we did was make sure that the seatbelt was hooked up and that the hubcaps were off. So that was kind of the effort.
And how old are you at this time?
18.
18?
Yeah. And I spent the rest of my career in the Air Force at Barksdale, and the Oldsmobile was my daily driver, and I was reading everything I could about drag racing at that point. I knew all the names. I could spout names. Ted Sear, Adams and McEwen. I knew all those guys because I was reading drag news every week, and really got into it. So I got discharged and I went to New York with a friend of mine. We were hustling pool at the time. We got to be, both of us were pretty good pool players, so we traveled around hustling pool. We went up to New York. His mother and his family were in New York. We spent about a month there, and then this was the summer of '59. And he says, let's go to Vegas. I said, okay, let's go to Vegas, but let's stop in Detroit on the way. So we went to Detroit just in time for the 59 Nationals. And
NHRA Nationals.
yeah,
right?
yeah. And because of the people that I had known when I was in high school, and the people that I got to meet while I was in the service, because I would go home every weekend. And so I knew Cue Ball Whale from New Orleans. I knew J.D. Gagliano. I knew Marina Monjour. Several guys that would play a prominent role in my drag racing career later on. And I got to see them at the Nationals, and they were surprised to see me there. And I saw the Sidewinder, Jack Chrisman, and the best part about going there was I snuck in. We got into the race without having to pay for a pit pass or anything, and 3 days we were there, and we never did pay to get in. I'm sure that'd make Parks turn over in his grave.
Well, Parks.
Yeah, head of NHRA, who was a subject of issue later on. Anyway, we go to the '59 Nationals, and I'm really getting stoked about the whole drag racing scene. But he wants to go on to Vegas, and I said okay. So we ventured forth and ended up dealing blackjack and dice at the Fremont Club in Vegas, and I hated it.
And you're working there?
Yeah, we got jobs, and a guy named Bob Ayub owned a dealer school, and Johnny talked his way into the dealer school, and then brought me in, and then once we learned how to do it, then we got like the guy that puts out the chips on the dice table.